But in that one day, we pretty much lost him because he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I
No.
just had my youngest at the time. She was 6 months. And they said, he's got 2 weeks to live. Take him home, let him say goodbye to his children. And I just wasn't having it. His mother was at the time the oldest surviving ovarian cancer patient in the United States. She was diagnosed at 41 and had lived till 70. So we thought if she could fight it, he could fight it.
Welcome to the Persistence U podcast with Lisbeth. That's you as in university, but we're really much more of a community here. Lisbeth Meredith is an author, speaker, and online teacher. Each week, she'll be delivering amazing stories from survivors and strivers, all threaded together with a dose of persistence. We're so glad you're listening.
Persisters, I am so honored to introduce you to Julie Barth. Let me just start by saying there are people in life, and I have been one of them in the past, where their friends, their coworkers will say, I just don't know how you do it. How do you make it through the stuff that you're making it through? And Julie is one of those people who made it through a lot. As a young mom of several children, one who was born with primordial dwarfism and a lot of associated health issues, Julie still was so fortunate to have a marriage to the love of her life until at age of 34, he got pancreatic cancer. What happened next was horrific. Julie had so many different issues pop up in her life. It is a reminder that we should never say, I think I've hit my rock bottom, because we never know what's coming in the future. But Julie literally had to hold on and stay the amazing supporter of her family that she is and deal with a whole lot of health issues. And then got into a marriage later on that was abusive. So Julie has many, many insights, and she has written an amazing book. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. You're going to love this interview. She's so good-humored and so very gracious. And so I'm really extraordinarily honored. I'm also honored to be now looking at entries into the anthology that I am editing called Solo Women Travelers, Bold Journeys, Stories of Healing, Resilience, and Self-Discovery. This is for women who, in fact, travel to help them heal or gain resilience. They, launched their lives and the newest chapter in their lives through a solo travel incident. So it's going to be 1,200 words or less for the stories. I'm going to choose the ones that tell the greatest story. If a person is interested in submitting to my Bold Journeys anthology, by all means, please join my email list at lameredith.com, and I can send you the call for entries. I am just really excited about this. Solo travel for me, especially on a shoestring budget, helped me really launch the next chapters of my life. When I realized that I had the ability to be in a foreign country all on my own, not in a tour group, not on a cruise ship, but really make it and make new connections and learn culture and learn what I was made of, it felt like anything was possible. And that's why I'm so excited about this anthology, which then will lead to my own travel memoir, which will be the book project after that. So feel free to be excited with me. Share the news with your friends. And if you are that woman who used solo travel after the age of 40, join me at lameredith.com or look on my social media for the call for entries. Thanks so much. I'll get you to Julie straight away. Julie Barth, thank you for being here. Your life and your family's lives are pretty incredible. So just appreciate you being able to share that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Julie, did you always know that you wanted to have a big family? Because when we start this story, you're a mom of like 4 kids, right? And you're married, and then some things, it's a beautiful, bustling family. And then
Yes,
things take a turn.
they do. Yeah, I grew up with just one sister. So, it was kind of lonely. We didn't have any extended family. So I always just loved the chaos of, I always figured if you didn't get along with one sibling, you could hang out with another one. So I always gravitated toward chaos and a lot of kids and just being in the mix. And so, yeah, we had 4 children. Colin was my best friend growing up. And, there's a story where when I was little, I used to practice writing what my eventual name would be because I had a crush on him. So, and
That's your
sometimes I
husband.
say
That was your
that,
husband,
yeah,
Colin
it
Barth.
was.
That is
It was.
adorable. So he was a
Yeah,
childhood crush.
he was. He was my first kiss. Yeah, I was not his. So he loved saying that. But
Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks,
yeah,
Colin.
thank you. Thanks. But yeah, so it was almost as if we were meant to be together. We got married slightly young. I mean, I guess 24 isn't that young, but we were just best friends. And
Mhm.
we then subsequently had our oldest and then our second daughter. She had a whole host of different, she has primordial dwarfism and a whole bunch of other challenges that happened post birth. So,
But that may have stopped you in your tracks for a little bit, because to have a child who's born with some physical disabilities really can be like, wow, you weren't expecting that. We don't expect that.
yeah,
And you're in your
no,
20s.
right. Yeah. But I will say that Tatum is almost the catalyst for me to want more children, which I
Oh,
think at the time people were like, What are you doing? You have," and I thought at that point, I can focus on all of this and what it involves and, get myself so immersed into it that I forget that there's life outside of it. So I will say that deciding to have more children and with each one of them, the joy that came with them kind of pulled me out of, focusing on all of the things that were wrong. And I felt like I had to fix at the time. I think they taught me that I don't, there's nothing to be fixed. I didn't have to be fixated on trying to make Tatum normal, trying to, you know, fix whatever the doctors were saying was wrong with her. We just accepted who she was and she had this big family and we didn't look at her like anything was different. We just accepted the way that she had her limitations, but we didn't see it that way. And I think it was really beautiful the way that the 4 of them, because eventually there were 4, it was like, she was just like everybody else to us. So
I love that. I love that.
yeah,
So she has this big family, and you've got your childhood sweetheart, and you're both in it.
we are in it. Yes.
When did things start to make a turn for you?
Well, so we traveled with her for years. We had laryngeal reconstruction of her, and right as she was starting to feel better, and we were able to vacation, we were able to do all these things. He just started being really not himself. He
Colin?
was crabby, crap. Yes,
Okay, so
correct.
your husband started
My
being
husband.
a different
He was
person.
just yes, yeah. He was always very positive, and he started being very grumpy all the time, and his whole personality changed.
Wow.
So yeah, so I kind of just said, you need to go to the doctor and figure out, what's wrong. And it was a whole long process of one day. You'd think it was, but in that one day, we pretty much lost him because he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I
No.
just had my youngest at the time. She was 6 months. And they said, he's got 2 weeks to live. Take him home, let him say goodbye to his children. And I just wasn't having it. His mother was at the time the oldest surviving ovarian cancer patient in the United States. She was diagnosed at 41 and had lived till 70. So we thought if she could fight it, he could fight it. And also looking at Tatum, we thought, they told us she wasn't going to make it, but look at her. So it did give us the positivity to enjoy 16 months with him before he passed away. And a lot of them were not great months, but there were so many lessons learned in that short period of time that it was nice to be able to at least have those times with him. So
16 months is much better than 2 weeks.
It is. In some ways, yes, and in other ways, it was hard to watch. But yes, definitely having that extra time. 2 weeks would have been devastating, and like I said, I wasn't having it. You know?
Did you get help from places like hospice or things like that? What was helpful to you at the time? Because you're dealing with your daughter just healing from her laryngeal.
Yes, laryngeal reconstruction.
Okay, so she's
Yeah.
just getting her voice, right?
Well, she lost her voice, but she was just starting to, like, grow a little bit. She also has primordial dwarfism,
Okay.
so she just would never grow, you know? So it was, and she would throw up a lot. So it was all of those things tied into one, just a
Oh,
lot of
no.
medical stuff. So yeah, it was a lot. But it was almost as if, and I think this is kind of the beauty of life in that whole, you only are given what you can handle. Just as she was starting to kind of soar, it was almost, I see it as we were given Colin for this very short period of time. And as sad as it was that it was a very short period of time, I see it as he was there to support me. He was there for his family. He was there to make Tatum all that she could be. And then it was almost as if he was called for something else and it was his time to go. It was just a natural progression, which it takes getting beyond it on the other side of it to see that all of these things happen for a reason. And, that's a hard pill to accept because you don't want to see that, sometimes you don't want to see the good in what's going on because you're
Sure.
upset. But there was so much good to be had in the short period of time that we had him. And that's what I like to focus on is, people spend their entire lives to have a great love like that and to have a great person in their life. So I feel very blessed. Unfortunately, losing him, but very blessed to have him when I did. All of us really.
When you lost him, what were the conversations? Because you and I talked earlier about you had some conversations about keeping his memory alive. What were your thoughts at the time? Because I know you were going through a lot. Just the
I
idea for
was.
me of single parenting 4 kids, because I single parented 2 traumatized kids for all of my parenting experience. So I can't imagine 4 at the time. That's a
Yeah,
lot, much less
it
with
is a
me,
lot.
with a disability and medical needs and then him. So, what were your conversations with him like?
Well, we were very blessed in being in the town that we both grew up in. So, we grew up there, we lived there. And so the community was absolutely amazing. He was a commodities trader down at the Board of Trade. So when he got sick, he was trading for himself. He didn't have insurance. He didn't have sick days. He didn't have holidays. So here I was, the mother of 4 children, no money coming in, for 16 months. There was disability, but to get all of that rolling was, so we really were just so blessed when our community came together to help us in the ways that they did. I started selling things on eBay. I would go down to thrift stores and buy things at 5 a.m. and still be home for the kids. But the charity, well, so in the conversations that we had, we were just so incredibly blessed to have all these things and resources in our lives. And I remember thinking that there are so many other people that are in our position. You like to think yours is isolated, but it, we weren't isolated. There were a lot of people out there that needed help the way that we did. So when Colin was dying, I said to him many times that all of his suffering, because if you've never known anyone with pancreatic cancer, it is just probably the worst suffering that you can see. I said to him many times that this won't be for nothing, like your spirit and everything that you are will live on. And we have to make something great come out of something, this tragedy. And so that is, kind of the mission that I made. I sat for a long time with it because it was hard for me and I was still feeling the loss. And, I won't lie, I was angry and, and just revisiting all of that took me a very long time to come full circle and realize that, I was given the time with him. He was given time on earth, and Tate has been given the extra 24 years that she never thought she would. And all these things are, they're not just coincidence. There's a reason why they were here, I'm here. And I take that very personally. I want to make sure that I do that for him, that his spirit lives on. So
That's excellent. So tell us about the nonprofit you created in his name.
I did. So the nonprofit it's for women-led households that fall into crisis. The problem is with a situation like Colin, which I think I told you, I didn't have sick vacation pay. I didn't. So when he stopped working, that was it. I didn't have anything. And there's a really hard process to get funds from the state and, receive care. So our charity was based on the premise that you shouldn't have to lose everything to get help. There's so many of these situations where they won't help you until you have nothing. So you spend all your savings, you give everything away. And then everyone, the government or whatever programs are out there are like, we're here to help. Ours kind of, our
Right. It
premise
is
is
true.
that
It is true.
it
I was
is,
on
it
public
is.
assistance for a couple of years when my kids were tiny, and you had to make sure that your car wasn't worth too much money, which, hey, mine was like $500. So it
Right.
definitely fit in the criteria, but you couldn't have anything of value if you were going to get help. And that's
Right.
really
It's
rough, because that
tough.
means that once you divest and get rid of all your stuff, you've really committed to being poor then. You
Yeah,
almost have to make a vow of impoverishment
you do.
and then how do you get out of that?
Right.
It's
Well,
an
and then
interesting.
once you're there, then you can't make more than a certain amount or they take it all away.
That's
And,
right.
so thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what the plan behind the charity is, that we want to stop women before they fall into that
Sure.
and give them skills and resources and everything as a safety net so that they don't have to get to the point where they don't have everything or
Mhm.
anything and then build back. We want to support them where they're at to soar instead of falling all the way down and then maintaining, because I think that's the slippery slope you get to. So
Mhm.
that's where our charity differs from other outreach programs, because I remember being in that position too. I had a home, I had a very nice home, I had a nice car, and I looked around and all these people were homeless and they didn't have anything. And it makes you feel like you're being an imposter by asking for help, because you're
Yeah.
like, I have this beautiful home, and what I'm going to show up at a state aid and say what? Like, oh, my home, in the middle of a really nice town, and you drive up in your Volvo and you say you need help. That's a very uncomfortable feeling, and it shouldn't be, because you do need help, and you worked hard to get where you're at. So you shouldn't have to, fall into poverty to get somebody to help you out, so that you
Right.
can maintain where you're at and soar and be something, more and substantial, so that you don't have to look to other people. You can do it on your own.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about not just you plunging into poverty, which would have been awful, but then the kids as well.
Yeah.
And that had many adverse experiences that would follow them for a very long time in their lives. And the same with other
Absolutely.
people. So I think if you can prevent that, that is fantastic. It's also difficult. I am very grateful. So I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but it's difficult to rely on the government anymore, especially to
Yes.
prioritize the status of women and children, and to make, chances are there's always going to be more people needing than there are going to be the resources. So good for
Right.
you. So
Oh,
what a
thank you.
wonderful thing that you've created. What is it called?
It's called the CJB Outreach, which
Okay.
stands for Colin James Barth. Both
Nice.
of them, if you punch it in, it'll be there. But yeah, it's just it's kind of one of those specialized things that we're hoping will really grab it. People will get be aware of things around them, that because you don't know until you're stuck in it, and then you're stuck in it and you don't know what to do about it. So I'm really excited about the prospects of what we can help people with.
I think that's fantastic. Do you serve women in your state only, or are you looking to cast a broader net? How's that? What does that look like at the
Well,
moment?
right now we're kind of in the throes of a startup, so
Okay.
we're kind of evolving as we go along. So my second book, my first book
Yeah.
is now out, and it's been out for a while, but I just released the audiobook of it.
That's
So I'm really
so
excited
huge and
about that.
exciting. What's
It
the
is,
title, please?
it's called Notes from a Blackberry. The reason why it's called that is because when I went to chemo with Colin, he would be so sick that, I thought it was going to be a time for us to have like deep, meaningful conversations, and it wasn't. So I sat and I wrote Tatum's story because I had just been through the throes of Tatum's illness and it kind of just naturally flowed into Colin's, but I would write it on my Blackberry and I would email it back home and piece it together on my laptop. So that's why it's called Notes from the Blackberry.
I love it. And for very young people who may be listening, we're not talking about strawberries and blackberries and blueberries. We're talking about what used to happen that we had before smartphone.
Right. Yes. Yes.
That's great. That is really wonderful. I love that title. And now
Thank you.
what will it be called?
So the new book is called From Blackberries to Thorns, and it's a separate, it's a very different turn to the story. It was another crisis situation I was in that involved domestic abuse, which is another passion of mine. And that's why the charity is set up for women of all different kinds of situations that find themselves suddenly in a position where they have to be the breadwinner. They're forced to take care of their children while also, trying to make a living, juggling everything. So the second book will be coming out. And again, it's a very different turn to it, but that's kind of where the domestic violence and abuse and all of those issues are tied to the charity, which it's just a big women's resource to help you through whatever crisis you're getting through.
I love it. That sounds wonderful. Well, Julie, where can people learn more about you, the nonprofit, as well as the books?
The book.
And
So
find you.
thank you. So my website is juliebarthauthor.net. And it's set up so that when you go to my page, the charity is on there as well. And there's a link to the charity website. And then there's another link, which is my daughter's art. Tatum, who went through all the medical stuff, she has a website where we sell all of her art. And 20% of all the proceeds flow to help us fund the CJB Outreach. So they're kind of all intertwined. Yeah, her art really is just a reflection of her beauty and she just wants to make people happy. And I hope that the art, really, when you see the art, it's really beautiful. And then when you recognize all of the miracle that she is, it just really brings it all to light. So,
And when we were speaking before we went on record, you talked about the fact that she did want to plug into a more traditional workplace, but with so many different barriers to entering that workplace and with health issues, she found a way to do it herself through her art. And art can really help increase resilience and
it will.
be
Yeah.
so positive. So brilliant for her.
Yeah. I mean, I always say if she didn't have the limitation, she would have been the head of a CEO company. She started all of this on her own. She started marketing it on social media alone. And that's when I kind of decided, you know what, this book has been sitting. I got to get the book out. Let's, forward your art because she just really wants to be a part of the world. And since she can't do that, in person, her online presence, her art, that's just the way that she can reach out to people in her own little way, being a part of society. So it really
I
helps
think that's
her.
fantastic. That really is. What does she call her business or her art?
It's called Hope4Tayt, HOPE, number 4, TAYT. I
Okay.
had to make her name spelled originally. So her name is Tatum, but it's TAYT.
Okay.
Instead of TATE. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, good. So we know that's a lot. And it's wonderful that your family has united around this.
It is.
I love that.
It is. Yes. Everyone's involved. And my daughter, Piper, who is at Clemson University, which we spoke of, she started all of this. There was, at her school, there was something called Genius Hour. So she came to me one day in 6th grade. She said, Mom, I have to do this thing called Genius Hour. We have to come up with a project. And I said, well, what do you think about like doing a 5K run for pancreatic cancer? And so she didn't settle on that. She didn't want to, because no one wants to run. I said, okay, do what you want.
Not
But
wrong.
she started. Yeah, right. So she actually she started the charity back in 6th grade and raised all these funds every year. And then when she went off to college, we kind of sat down and had that conversation. Well, let's do something bigger. Let's make it national. Let's get the word out. Let's really try and help people on a large scale. So everyone in the family is kind of connected to it and committed to it and makes us all very happy to, to honor Colin's name and, obviously Tatum too. So
That's excellent. I love it. That is really inspiring. And thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to getting the link to your website in my show notes. So when people want to connect with what your family is doing and help support that and or buy the books, including the new audiobook, which is not a good thing, that they'll know exactly where to go. And thank you so much for this time.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate meeting with you and you getting the word out.
Oh,
It means
my
a lot to all
pleasure.
of us.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. Now, to find out more, head on over to lameredith.com and be sure to hop on the mailing list too. If you've enjoyed this show, please leave a rating and review or share with a friend. And if you really, really liked it, go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Persistence U with Lisbeth.